Over to you, Rosalind.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, everyone. And welcome to the second day of our leadership webinar seminar. I pray that everyone had a good day today. And I know that we are looking forward to today's offering. I know that last week whetted our appetites, and we are now hoping to have a rollicking afternoon today. And I'm glad that we're all here to start off this afternoon's proceedings. Can I ask, before we go any further, can I ask someone please to start this afternoon with a word of prayer, please? Who will volunteer this afternoon?
No problem. Sitting the forward here.
Thank you.
Let's all bow our hearts in prayer. Almighty and everlasting God, we come before you this evening, Lord, to give you praise and to give you thanks. Father, as we are about to go into this afternoon, this evening sessions, I pray that you're going to be with us all. Open our minds, oh God, so that we, oh God, can absorb what has been taught to us tonight. I pray, oh God, for the persons who are going to be presenting, oh God, that they may flow and bring clear understanding and clarity to us. I thank you, oh God, for those who are coming on, and I thank you, oh God, for those who are here. I pray, oh God, that everything would run smoothly, no disconnection, no internet problems for this evening session. I thank you, O God, for everyone here and their families. In no other name, in Jesus' precious name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Lord, for that prayer. And we'll get right into this evening's workshop, leadership workshop. And we have our first presenter today. It's none other than Mrs. Prescola Rowley, MSN in Nursing Administration, and she's a medical surgical nurse specialist. Ms. Prescola has a nursing experience that spans over 38 years, working in all areas of the health care environment. Mrs. Rowley, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Sorry, Ms. Rowley holds a master's degree in nursing administration.
Roll.
Okay, Mrs. Roll holds a master's degree in nursing administration from the University of the West Indies, Mona campus, and an MBA in human resource management. Is an advanced medical surgical registered nurse, a certified professional manager, and presently oversees the family medicine and oncology clinics in New Providence. Mrs. Roll is a graduate and trainer of the International Council of Nursing Leadership for Change program. She is the national and regional coordinator for the ICNF LFC. Is a graduate of the 2019 Global Nursing Leadership Program and was a co-facilitator for the PAHO region for the GNLI program in 2020. That is Global Nursing Leadership Program. She is a mentor and part-time lecturer for student and graduate nurses and a lecturer for the management and leadership programs for senior nurses. Ms. Rowley served as president of the Nurses Association of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. She also served on the Bahamas Nursing Council and the National Women Advisory Council of the Bahamas. She presented at national, regional, and international conferences, including the Caribbean Nurses Organization and the International Council of Nurses conferences. Mrs. Roll was invited to ICN to serve as a panelist for the 66th Commission on the Status of Women Global Health Workforce Solutions for Gender Equality, with emphasis on disaster risk reduction in March 2022. Ms. Roll is the Justice of the Peace of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. She and her husband are proud parents of a son, daughter, and a son-in-law. So this afternoon, Ms. Rowe will be our first presenter, and she will be presenting on mentorship and succession planning in leadership. This afternoon, I give you all Ms. Rowe. Please give her your utmost and undivided attention. Take notes, and if you have questions, she will tell you when and how we will go with questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Haynes Stewart. And thank you for this invitation extended for me to participate in this very prestigious Caribbean Regional Midwives Association Leadership Conference. And I want to say congratulations to all of the participants who were successful in being chosen to be a part of this conference. And I know you all are really getting a lot out of this conference. And I want to just extend heartfelt thanks to Dr. Shirley Curtis for this invitation. And thank you, ma'am, for this opportunity. I know you do have another presenter that is coming on, so we're going to get right into it. And so I'll just screen share so that we could. Tell me if you could see my presentation.
Yes, we can.
And you can hear me clearly.
Yes.
Wonderful. Good evening, ladies, prestigious ladies of this leadership seminar. I thought it very interesting that Dr. Curtis asked me to present on mentorship and succession planning in leadership. And from my bio, you must have heard that I am really, really involved in the International Council of Nurses Leadership for Change program, which is really, really grooming nurses to take leadership role in the profession. And so tonight we're not gonna have just a lecture. I want us to see how we can really interact. And so like Mrs. Haynes Stewart mentioned, if you have a question, I have no problem with you raising your hand in the chat or letting me know that you have a question on a particular point that I'm dealing with. Okay, everyone? I know you're all muted, but you know, I just need, give me some thumbs up. Let me see some thumbs up against those names. I see we have Guyana, we have Jamaica, we have Bahamas. Come on, that's right. Give me some raise. Well, they spell it raised hands. That's right. Thumbs up. Excellent. Excellent. I want you all to be a part of this. Guyana, I see you. I see you. Wonderful. All right. Wonderful. And so mentorship and succession planning in leadership. When I came across when I was asked about this, I said mentorship and succession planning. Actually, this picture epitomized what that is all about. Imagine you as a little girl being held in between your parents, or if you can't go that far back, like, you know, things, you know, you could have a little memory lapse. Imagine you doing this with your child or your grandchild. You don't think this picture shows something whereby you feel safe and you feel cared for? I think I want some thumbs up or some thumbs down if you all feel as if this picture just ain't giving you that vibe. Whether, you know, it makes you feel safe knowing that you're being held You're being, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Curtis. I got a thumbs up from you. Yes, trust me, when I saw this, I felt this little girl. I felt myself in this, whereby I'm being guided, I'm being led. Thank you, April, for raising your hands. Yes, thank you. And so we're just going to move forward, and I just want to just share with you a few of the objectives that we are going to have at the end of this presentation. And I promise you, I hope I will not go over the time allotted. Dr. Curtis, it is 1 hour or 1 hour, 15 minutes.
You have about an hour 15.
Okay, I'm gonna try, see if we could do this in an hour. And so we're gonna define what is mentoring and list some of the purposes of mentoring. And I want us to especially describe some of the benefits of mentoring. And then when we would have really gained some insight into mentoring, then I want us to really look at what succession planning is all about and how we can engage our candidates or our proteges for succession planning, okay? And so mentoring, I thought Zig Ziglar hit it, where he said that a lot of people have gone further than they thought they could because someone else thought they could. And I saw mentoring there because you may be sitting down Jamaica or Guyana or Bahamas, you may be sitting down on your unit and you may be feeling, my God, this is me. But somebody is watching, or someone have been watching you, and they started to invest in you and they pushed you further than you thought that you can actually go. Okay. And so mentoring, actually, according to Green Powell, is a fundamental form of human development where one person invests time, energy, and personal know-how assisting the growth and ability of another person. I know as midwives, you all can see yourselves in this, whereby you saw a young nurse coming into your unit and you felt the need to help that young midwife on improving her ability to be able to deliver those babies safely. Now, I must put it out there, I'm not a midwife. So I could try and see how I could get into some of the midwife situations, but please do not shoot me if I don't get it exactly right, okay? All right, great. Now that you all on my side, mentoring can start formally or more naturally in an informal way. Actually, they felt that it's difficult to be defined, but Bozeman noted that it involves the transfer of knowledge and wisdom from a more experienced person to a less experienced person, and that is true. If there are times when younger persons can be mentors, and I've experienced that, whereby younger nurses was mentoring me on how to, the same Zoom platform, I got mentored by younger nurses, and how to be comfortable with some of the social media platforms. Yes, I got mentored by younger nurses because they had more knowledge about it than I did. And so don't look at age, look at the level of experience and knowledge that person is bringing to the table, okay? And so if we want to really, everybody keeping up with me? Wonderful. I see some shaking heads. Yes, listen, those of you who are off screen, I need you to keep up with me, mind you, keep up with me. So the purpose of mentoring, actually, it provides guidance. Certainly it offers motivation, definitely emotional support, because if you know, trust me, when I was being guided as to how to screen share with these young nurses, they were clicking it fast. And I was like, yo, I can't do that. because I didn't see what you did. So they say, sister, you need to keep up. And so they slowly showed me how to do it. And I felt I was being emotionally supported, because when I was not comfortable in it, I used to get all perplexed. And so mentoring offers you emotional support. And that mentor, that mentor is the role model for what it is that you're trying to learn. And then when you're being mentored, it helped with exploring careers. So as midwives, when you're being mentored, you're looking into where else nursing can take you other than midwifery, or if you want to just now be that midwife extraordinaire. It helps you to explore your careers, okay? And causes you to set goals. You're not going to sit down if you're being mentored and not put some those individual development plans, not put something in place, okay? It helps you to develop contacts and certainly identify resources. So someone wants to be admitted. Okay.
No, I'll do it. I'll do it.
Okay, wonderful. All right. And so I believe that the purpose of mentoring is vital to us understanding what mentoring is all about. Now I'm not advancing. I probably need to stop and restart since I interfered with admitting, or what?
No, just click back on your screen, on your slide, and then it should go.
See, I will not get flustered. I will stop
Put the
share.
cursor. No, put the cursor. Put the cursor on the slide.
Okay.
Like next to help with, and click. There you go.
I feel emotionally supported. Hello, y'all better keep up with me. Oh goodness, I'm telling you, when you have people in the room that knows what to do, you feel supported. Thank you, Dr. Curtis. And so let's look at some of the characteristics of a mentor. A mentor values the mentee as a person. They see this person as being somebody who is precious. And so they value that person, okay? And as a mentor, they develop mutual trust and respect, because say you have a mentor or you have a mentee who is a young midwife. There are times that you all would sit down and you all would discuss what would have happened during a problem or during a situation of a delivery or something. Well, see, I was a NRP, a neonatal resuscitation program. Now I dealt with the babies all the time, and then I went into PALS. So I saw a part of the delivery room, but I never used to be looking at the mummy, okay? I used to be looking at the baby. And so when you see you have that person in the room who is helping to guide you, I would be there with those midwives, helping them to safely resuscitate those infants after delivery. And so it helps you to develop that mutual trust and respect, that after you would have accomplished one or two of your successful resuscitation and everything, you gain that respect for that person, okay? That mentor and that mentee, you maintain confidentiality. What I share with you, it's between me and you, and that's where our trust builds on each other. Listen both to what is being said. A mentor, I need you to remember that. Not only what has been said, but how it's been said. And so if we have Patrice Hunt come to say, Haynes Stewart, and tell her that, she had a delivery last night and she felt a bit uneasy about it. Haynes Stewart, being that excellent mentor, would not only listen to what she said, but how she is saying it, to know that Patrice was concerned about something that happened. And that's what a mentor, that's the characteristics of a mentor. And then it helps the mentee solve his or her own problem rather than give direction. Instead of just taking over everything and doing everything, Haynes Stewart would guide Patrice as to how you should have done it or what you should do next time. That is how it helps them to solve their problem. Focus on the mentee's development and resist the urge to produce a clone, okay? I want my mentee be exactly me. If anything, I want her to be better than me. So I don't want her to be cloned, okay? Let me go over on because we have an hour. So mentorship is the process where there is transmission, knowledge, social capital. I know, I don't know if many of you have come across the word social capital, but social capital is when you are connected with somebody that they help to open doors for you. I always gave this little example of how I was the duty officer on night duty, and one of my porters, he got stuck with a needle, and the registered nurse would not help him fill out his incident form. And he came to me and I called and I said, you need to fill out this incident form so he could go to ER to be checked out. And I never understood how that impacted that porter until one night I had a flood. As the duty officer, I'm responsible for the hospital. And that porter galvanized other porters, all the housekeeping department, and say, sister, have a flood, you all come on, let's get this work done. That there is social capital because you did something for somebody and that somebody feels so connected to you, they will move mountain for you. So don't look at the small things or don't disregard the small things. Let us look at what it is that we're doing for other people so that we could develop that social capital. And it also offers psychosocial support, okay? It can focus on our work, our career, or our professional development. And a person with more knowledge and experience certainly guides the more junior person. According to Shea, a mentor offers knowledge, insight, and perspective of wisdom that is especially useful to the mentee. I know nobody in this conference looking for somebody to come tell them how they must build a cabinet when they're trying to deliver a baby safely. Now, if you build in a house, yeah, definitely. But the wisdom that is being shared is to help you as that mentee in the field that you're in. And the mentor works with mentee to help him or her to discover and develop skills, talents, and abilities. So maybe building that cabinet might be something that could benefit them eventually, or for another life maybe. So mentorship is vital. Anybody have a question that they want to raise their hand so far with? Okay, I'll go on then. So what mentorship? I think my is what it is to be a best mentor. And one of the main things, let me get my slide open, because a piece of it is getting cut off, is to consider timing. When you consider timing, I want you to look back in your mind and think of when your mentor who invested in you came to you. Did you feel as if they came into your life too early? It is never too early. No matter what stage you are in your career. When you start mentoring, whether you're the mentor or you're the mentee, it is never too early. And if you are further along in your career as advanced midwives, you should remember to pay it forward by investing in a nurse who is just starting out. Remember that. And like I mentioned with the social capital, do not underestimate the value of your input or your experience, because you can be guiding that young midwife into whatever it is that she has been dreaming about. Never underestimate your input and your experience. Mentoring. Now, Vance noted that the willingness by nurses to honor Now, it was the willingness by employees, leaders, but I put my nurses there to honor and support colleagues through strong mentor connections can forge both individual and collective power in our professional endeavors. I feel as if Dr. Curtis have been a mentor to me, even though I'm not a midwife. You know why? Because back in the classroom, when Dr. Curtis used to be lecturing, sometimes I used to smile, you know, when Dr. Curtis would get a point across to you, she's always so laughing. And I always used to take note then, when you see that laughter come across, I say, boy, Rascola, you better open your eyes. So it helped. I couldn't say no to Dr. Curtis when she came and asked me to do this presentation. I feel as if whatever you ask me, Dr. Curtis, I would do it because I feel that you have invested in me as a nurse, and my honor is to show you that I am able to do what it is that you need me to do. And so mentors connection, it helps with both individual and collective power and in our professional endeavors. So as a leader, mentoring should be reserved for your exceptional employees, you all think? I think you all need to open up your mic and answer that question. Should mentoring only be reserved for your exceptional employees who show promise and need help to become top performers, or can we mentor those other employees who are not making that much effort? Somebody open up your mic and help me with that. Should it be only reserved for the exceptional employees?
I think you should start with the persons who not been exceptional at first.
Exactly.
Okay, give me another. I mean, really, why? Help me, why?
To motivate them.
Excellent, excellent. I saw Chanel, mic was open also. Do you feel as if it should be for
Yes,
the
and to develop,
exceptional?
and to develop them.
Yes,
We need to develop
excellent.
those that are not, so good at it.
Yes, definitely. So I put that.
You
I
have some more hands.
Some more hands. Go on, Shirley
Marlo?
Duncanson. Man,
Good
you come on
night.
screen, man. Come on screen so we could talk. Come
Yes.
on screen. Come on, raise. Let's
Good night. I would
Hi,
like to
Marlo.
say that, hi, ma'am. I would like to say that, I believe that nursing is a body where we operate as a part of a multidisciplinary team. And because we work in teams are so critical. And a team is truly as strong as its weakest link. So if you develop the ones who are not so strong, you have a powerful team, a force to reckon with. And that's how I believe that you should really work with the ones who will shatter the team, because they're the ones to watch, not necessarily the ones who will shine.
Yes, excellent, excellent. I see Shirley Duncan, her hand is up also.
Yes, hi, good evening. I'm from St. Lucia.
Excellent, welcome.
Yes, my point tonight is in regard to, I believe that all nurses need to be mentored, whether they're exceptional or not, because if we as nurses want to follow the theorist, Patricia Baner, who talks about from novice to expert, everybody starts at that level as a novice. Whether you're exceptional or not, you need to be mentored in order to get to the place where you need to be in nursing to be an expert. So whether you're exceptional or you're weak, even the exceptional nurse does have a weakness. So she too needs to be mentored, as well as the one that we think is weak, maybe clinically, but she might be strong in another area and she still needs to be mentored. So I think whether you're exceptional or they think you're exceptional or they think you're weak, every novice nurse, no matter what stage you are, you need to be mentored.
Excellent. Now you all see why I have those 2 question marks there. Because that was supposed to be that statement, they're supposed to stimulate you all. And I know I have my people on board. You are listening. Okay. Wonderful. I am so grateful. Were there any other hands raised, or I can go on?
You can go on.
All right. So mentoring also takes place with persons. Okay. Bernadette raised her hand.
Yes, I was thinking that there are some employees as well who may have some exceptional qualities, but are shy to really expose, and you could recognize, sometimes we identify, the strengths of some that are hidden, and we need to bring them out, mentor them, and pull them out of their little shells and make them stronger to be able to give the workforce what they've got on the inside of them. So we need to do that.
Excellent. Now you all making me feel as if we have a presentation going on. Wonderful. So yes, definitely. And I just want to also add that it's not only in the workplace that mentoring needs to happen, okay? It can actually happen outside of your workplace also among persons who lean toward individuals to guide and shape their career. So, because I'm telling you, even though I'm in nursing, I've had a very strong mentor who was on the police force. And so you can look to other persons other than your profession to help mentor you also. So how does mentoring help an organization? I believe that mentorship programs bridge generational divide in the workplace. I am a generational, okay, I'm a generational X. Let's put it out there. Now, some of you may be millennials, some of you may be, X with me, some may be a little older, or listen, mentorship is what pulls us together, because the millennials and the give me some more generations now who are younger, the alphas and those Zens, these people, they see things completely different now than we see them. And so mentoring is going to help us to bridge those generational divide. Have any of you had any situation where you look at the young nurses and your mouth drop open? I could put up the two of my hands. But then I realized that you just can't leave them. You have to show interest into them and start mentoring them. And then what it does is that you realize that sometimes when they are vocal, people beat you up because you're vocal. These young generation, that's just who they are. We must accept them for who they are. And that's where it helps us to bridge the generational divide. And it helps us to better understand how they're thinking. And so we develop workplace communication and processes. We actually fine tune it. All right. Mentors becomes better leaders. If you know, Shirlene, that you're a mentor and you're attempted to do something, and your mentee may not see you, but your mentee may just hear about it, you're going to think twice. Okay. Mentors develop leadership skills and access to new perspective. I have developed a new perspective on how, at one point, like I said, I'm from the old school. I've been in nursing for 38 years. And one of the main things that if you have a 6th certificate, you need to bring that 6th certificate in so that we can acknowledge it. These days, the young nurses take a picture of that 6th certificate and WhatsApp it to you. I had to get into that, but that is what is happening now. That's a new perspective. They still have to ensure that the hard copy gets to me, but when they WhatsApp that 6th certificate, it helps me to plan staffing, because this nurse is not out, it's not coming out. This nurse is sick. And so to me, once we mentor and we open ourselves to access new perspectives, we as leaders become better. Mentees become better team players. Definitely. I know that as we go along with mentoring others, those persons who, just what you spoke about, there may be an exceptional nurse who is shy, there may be one who is lagging behind, those persons become better team players as we mentor them. Mentoring in nursing leadership, having mentors is crucial to nursing leadership success. It builds strong, successful careers, and it develops strong cultures of knowledge sharing between senior nurses and less experienced nurses. So mentoring also helps us with higher employee engagement and retention. Listen, if you see, we mentor our young nurses and make them feel that you are valuable, you are vital to this profession, you wouldn't be having that mass exodus that you're seeing from nursing. We need to learn how to show our nurses that we value them, and we will have higher engagement and retention and support for the growth of high potential employees and even those who may be lagging behind. Mentoring in nursing leadership is vital. And it also helps to create a strong culture of knowledge. That is sharing between senior nurse leaders. We wouldn't have a senior nurse leader who know how to do something, and then she, instead of helping the young nurse, child, back in the days when I used to do it, such and such. No, mentoring help us senior nurses to see that what our input is valuable, and we share it with our less experienced employees, okay? I want you to remember that as a mentor and as a leader, it is vital that you get the right people on your bus. Right people help you to build that strong team that you spoke about. It helps us with high performing, and I know you all have performance appraisal coming up, and it helps build staff self-esteem and job satisfaction. And when you're a mentor, I want you to remember that you have to embrace feedback. Give open, honest input. If the nurse did something wrong, I need you to guide her. I reached out to one of my midwifery friends, and I had my notes. Dr. Shirley, you need to show me how I could find my note, what I wrote on my slide, because they ain't showing up. And I asked her, I said, give me a midwifery situation where a senior midwife could offer some advice to a young midwife. And she shared that oftentimes young midwives listen for the heart rate on the left-hand side, whereas it should be listened to on the right-hand side. I getting it right? Somebody help me out. But she said that is one of them. Now that is something she said they usually have a problem with sometimes they mix up. And then she said there's something about oh my God, something about the fundus. Mike, I need my notes, man, Dr. Curtis.
Fundal height.
Fundal height. She said that there are times when the nurse is palpating and they think that the head is crowning or something. And I better stop because you all are the expert in here. I stop. I'll move on. But what she said was that as senior nurses, please do not hold back on guiding your mentees. Use that incident to help guide them to do the right thing and help them to be correct in what it is that they're doing. And as you would have mentored, we're going to quickly go into succession planning, because as you grow as a leader, you will be given more responsibilities and move into new and complex roles. And so when you're moving up, you need to have somebody to be able to take over the spot that you vacated. I don't know what happened here, but succession planning, according to what I am seeing, is it blurred to you all? Okay, succession, you should be proud when you can hand off a program to a more junior person and the program keeps running without you. Never believe that this could only work if I'm there. You should be proud that your program can happen if you vacate that spot and it keeps going. That means you as a leader did an excellent job. The program was sound and you developed a new leader. That's what succession planning is all about. Empowering your people. The best executive is the one that's you as the leaders in this leadership program, in this leadership conference, are the ones who has the sense enough to pick good men to do what he wants done and self-restraint enough to keep from meddling with them while they do it. Theodore Roosevelt. That's what a leader is all about, okay? And so the components of leadership development is identifying that potential leader, make sure that potential leader is exposed to formal continuing education, formal and continuing education, have learning networks, conferences, all these international conferences that they can be involved with. Have them involved with special projects. If there's a new maternity unit being constructed, ensure that one of your young nurses, your midwives, get on that project so that they could show them, listen, we need these things for this project, okay? Career development and planning. All of this comes as you look as to what it is you as a leader must do in order to help develop that person and have your succession plan a successful one, and focus on continuing development, okay? Succession planning, why is it important? First and foremost, it's nurturing and developing our employees within the organization. Don't believe that the organization is you. A succession plan in place helps to assure the organization is prepared to function when key people leave. You want to know that your unit crashed when you went on vacation? No, man. Have somebody there to carry on your work. Have somebody there. It sends message to employees that they are valuable when they see that you're grooming them for the next level. And it supports a positive reputation that there are career paths in the organization, and hence it retains employees and supports recruitment. Now, how do we engage with succession planning? As a leader, you need to be aware of succession planning and identify a rising star. Don't be threatened. My God, plenty people see that there are powerful people coming up in the organization, but because they feel as if, oh, she doing too good, they are threatened and they would not groom that person for the next level. Leaders, don't be threatened, okay? If you see somebody who have good potential or who you see could be groomed, discuss it with your supervisor and let them know you want to groom this person so that they would be ready for the next level. Let the employees know that you want to expand their responsibility, put a little bit more on them. And when you do that, you don't necessarily talking about this is to help with promotion, you know, because you ain't the person promoting, but help them to expand in their roles, okay? And engaging, it helps them to expand their responsibility gradually. When you're mentoring as a succession and with your succession plan in place, have frequent check-ins. You doing okay? How was that project? How did it turn out? How was the delivery? Use opportunities to help your protege as you're keeping them and guiding them so that you could see how they are progressing. It helps you to use your affiliative power to provide institutional support to enhance success. What that means is that, listen, you're a senior nurse. There's a young nurse coming up, and this young nurse needs to have some opportunity for more educational advancement. You're familiar with how the training department works. Guide that nurse. Because you are aware of it, guide that nurse. That will enhance the success without getting that in service, okay? Be prepared for mistakes. But I want us to remember, we must learn to offer more guidance and less reprimands. When you see that young nurse make a mistake, use it as a teaching and learning opportunity. Don't reprimand. Try to see how you could offer guidance. Succession plans help to encourage not only local, regional, and international experience, because from this regional perspective, you in St. Lucia, Jamaica, Bahamas, Guyana, St. Kitts and Nevis, you all are now getting a perspective from throughout the Caribbean. That's going to help you develop your vision. It's going to help with your specialized training as a leader. It increases key stakeholders. You know, you could now call Shirley if you need something or if you need some advice. You have opened up your network as to who your key stakeholders are with a situation, and you could turn to them. Bernadette can be somebody, a resource person that you could turn to. Demonstrate interest and caring for your mentees' development through your succession plan for them, okay? It is vital that you do succession planning. And so I ask you the question, are you being groomed to take on more responsibilities? If yes, for what position? Do you think you're comfortable to take over that position? And if the answer is no, you're not, then you as that leader need to find out how can you ask to be further development. Obviously, this leadership regional session with you all is enhancing your leadership development. So somebody must have voiced that as a midwife, I need to be exposed to some leadership development, and it is now happening. If you are going to engage in succession planning for your position, what actions would you take? That's a level above you. Is it then that you know you're now a midwife, but they're saying that you need to have another degree or something, or you need to have, I know you do yearly, at your yearly conferences, definitely you must have all of your, what is the continuing education as a midwife? You must be current. There's something that's called prompt, right? Is it prompt? Yes, as a midwife, you need to.
Yes.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Keep with me. You need to be able to have all of these things in place to be considered for you to be promoted. So you must consider that. And so, as we summarize, listen, mentors, listen, leaders. A mentor, as you look into succession plan, you offer direction. You be there with leadership, coach them along, okay? Give them the advice and inspire them so that they would be motivated to succeed. Always be that one who are pushing them toward the finish line. So which are you? Are you the mediocre mentor that tells the person, do that, do this? Or the good mentor that, well, you know, this is how it should be, and explain it? Or are you that superior mentor that takes over and put hands on there? And like Miss Traynor said, the greatest mentor actually inspires her people. And I would want you to consider which one of these are you. And so those are my references as it relates to this presentation. And I would want to engage in any short question. We should have about 9 more minutes if you want. And so I will stop share so that we could share or any questions as it relates to mentorship and succession plan. Anyone?
Ladies, questions, comments, either unmute your mics or put it in the chat so we can see them.
Hi.
Hello. That's Patrice.
Yes.
You have a question?
A comment / question. Well, not really. It's a comment, basically. Excellent presentation, by the way. Awesome, awesome. Very timely. And I can relate to basically everything that you were shared, especially in terms of mentoring the younger nurses, because here it is, I'm in an area where the student nurses do not pass through. But yet, at the end of the day, when they are placed in my area, okay? And I see a lot of them come in, and like you say, the millennials, the Zens, I really don't know how to class all of them, but they are different. They are very, very different.
Yes.
And so you really have to meet them where they are. And like you say, not so much reprimand them, but you have to guide them or mentor them in the way that you feel is beneficial toward the institution. Because like you know, nowadays, the only mindset is, okay, I'm doing my 2 years and I'm getting out. And it's like, they have a don't care kind of attitude. So sometimes you pull them down and let them know that, look here, yeah, that may be your plan, but it doesn't matter. Wherever you go, your attitude follows you, and also your work ethics. So if this is training ground for what you plan to do as to wherever you end up, you got to start here. And I always tell them PMH Private Surgical is a opportune training ground for a well-rounded nurse. I'm talking everything, because in the area that I work in, they're basically exposed to a whole lot of different type of patients, from maternity to pediatrics, to med surg, you name it, it passed through Private Surgical. And two, with the mentorship, I don't feel that we have a good mentorship program or mentorship in place in the hospital, say to mentor a young nurse, to bring them up, and or what you call or succession planning. Let me put it like that. I don't think they prepare us enough to take on the role when they're out the door. Because here it is, from my standpoint, in the area that I'm in, I've had 2 supervisors, one resigned and the other one moved to a higher office. And who they would have prepared to take over their position? I couldn't say I can identify one that would have been properly prepared or properly mentored to get in that seat, even without a promotion, to get in that seat and basically perform as a manager takeover until they would have put the right persons in place.
So this is
I digress on
time.
That one.
This is a timely topic then, Patrice. I see Charlene hand is up. Charlene, you have a question or comment?
Yes, I want to say that this presentation really inspired me. I still consider myself to be a young nurse, but the category of nurses we have in St. Lucia, we have much younger nurses than I am. So currently now I'm considered to be a senior nurse, because the disparity in years of service and so on. But I want to say that this presentation is very, very dynamic. And I really appreciate the presenter, Miss Cerise. Remind me of her name again? Mrs. Roll, yes, for this presentation. What I also want to say is that what I realize in our current setting right now, the younger nurses are moving to greener pastures. So once they get an opportunity to move on to the US, or for maybe Bermuda, or even the Bahamas, one of these countries where they can make the US dollar, they want to run away. So sometimes you never get a chance to mentor them before they move on to another country or maybe to another area. So you find that we are losing a lot of our younger nurses to greener pastures. So we don't get a chance to really get a chance to touch base with them, to groom them before they move on. What do you suggest that we can do in that time?
Well, like you said, the younger nurses, definitely, they looking for greener pastures. And I feel as a nurse, in order for us to hold on to our nurses, we need to get our yard greener. I know government, they keep saying that they can't, but to onboard new nurses costs you more than if you kept somebody in country. Increase those salaries make it attractive at home, make the working environment better, and have senior nurses more open to really guide and mentor and shield those nurses, because some of them, sometimes they don't want to leave, but they get disgruntled because they ain't happy with the work environment. They're not happy with how they've been treated. If we could fix this, I believe we would, Shirley, we would help stop some of those people from leaving. Now, there are some, trust me, there are some who definitely will go. But if we could fix home, and like I say, give me one little bit more money, I may not consider going to Canada or the US if I could make my home and I could build in my own home. I feel that is vital. Governments, they need to wake up to this fact. The younger nurses need the money. They want the money. They are willing, if they could have that training in country and they could be guided in country and supported financially in country, they will stay home.
I agree 100%. So what about those of us who are willing to mentor them? Do we have to go for a mentorship program? Because based on what you presented, I felt that I was being a good mentor, but I don't think I have met the criteria yet. Because based on what you explained in maybe your last few slides, a mentor inspires. I'm not sure if I have inspired. Maybe I've been explaining a lot, but maybe I've not been inspiring enough.
Do you know what inspire is? Somebody sees this person, Shirlene, who comes on the unit, and instead of dictate, she worked with me. She worked along with me. She showed me. She supports me. That's where inspiration comes from, So Shirlene, you may be knocking yourself a bit hard, but I promise you, if you have been that person who was passionate about showing, helping, grooming, and supporting, inspiration is there. Inspiration is there. Just see how you could get out there and they say, instead of staying up in the ivory tower, get down on the ground with your nurses and show them I am willing. Many of those nurses, the reason why they say I inspire them is that I show them I ain't too big. I may be a sister, but if I gotta move a bedpan, I will move a bedpan. If I need to go get a mop to wipe up a water that spilled to make sure that my patients are safe, I will do that. And so, they would look at me and say, my sister, I said, you know what I telling you all? If you see they have to downsize and they say they have to choose between me and the housekeeper, I didn't show them I could do the housekeeper job. Inspire them to want to be so good and so marketable that they know, listen, I know I could keep my job no matter what. So Shirley, I believe you've been inspiring, Don't let that last slide cause you to doubt yourself. Know that you are doing well. And if you need to do a little bit more, do it. You better watch the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're doing good. Any other questions or comments? Rosalind, I taken over from you. Any more questions or comments?
Okay. I'm right here. I'm just looking at some comments in the chat. And one person said, look at this wonderful mentoring. LOL. True. Many leaders need to learn this, but awesome presentation. Very inspiring presentation. Great presentation. Somebody said, you have me thinking about instances where I mentored or I was mentored. And it really has us thinking that when you put on, you said, when I leave, I want to make sure that I have at least given someone else the chance to step into this role. That is how we need to look. Excellent presentation. Thank you, Sis Roll, for a great presentation. This saying goes, nurses eat their young, and I feel mentorship and succession planning is the key to erase this mindset. Good, we have. And I feel that we are lacking in this succession planning. Very good presentation. Make me feel more empowered. Good presentation. You have me thinking. Right? Some managers are either fearful of losing their position or not equipped with the tools needed to mentor nurses. And this leaves the younger nurses to slack away and end up becoming weak nurses.
Yes.
But I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for a very inspirational presentation.
Thank you for having me. And it is my pleasure to have had this opportunity with you all.
And you have really inspired us into looking at mentoring and succession planning in a new perspective. We know about it, but from listening to this presentation, it made us realize that no matter, even if it is the smallest thing,
Yes.
you can inspire someone, and you can help someone to get that position of, look, I need to do and to get myself into that position. I need to step up and help the younger ones. Because as I always heard, we are not here to turn stone. One day we will move on. And we want to know that when we move on, someone can say, I am stepping up because Miss So-and-so helped me to attain to reach where I am today and to be able to carry on and train other persons. So I want to say thank you very much for this very enlightening presentation. You have opened my eyes to some things that I may have also said, but I know that mentoring is something that will continue.
Yes. Thank you very much
for this
Okay.
enlightening presentation.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you very, very much to Prescola. You know, I can hardly call her Mrs. Roll, right? But she know when I say Prescola Charlton Roll, that means I want something. But I want to thank Prescola very much because she was she came in at the last minute. But obviously this spot was exactly here for her, because I think she hit all the spots that were needed. And I want the ladies on the chat to know that that is why we are putting on this workshop, because mentoring and succession planning is one of those things in midwifery that is very much needed. And we want you to become conscious of the need, not just to mentor, but to be mentored. And so sometimes you might have to go and attach yourself to somebody, right? And then if somebody asks, well, how can I find out how to mentor? This is to open up your understanding now that you might need to go and seek out some mentoring courses. The ICN, all of those that are nurses, Prescola, would you like to tell them about the ICN Leadership for Change program?
Definitely. Just a plug here. Listen, this is not by some, miraculous thing that I am able to share this with you. It is because of the exposure that I've had from the Leadership for Change program from ICN. We are an organization that is grooming nurses for leadership. And Mrs. Turner and myself, when we went to Singapore in 2019, we got the responsibility to actually have a Leadership for Change, not only here in country, but throughout the Caribbean region. When we started one program, I had Edie, who was supposed to have joined me from Trinidad and Tobago, but the pandemic happened. He was here that February, and we were supposed to have the Leadership for Change program, but we had to close the country. And so what I want is to have all of you listen, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Guyana, listen, Leadership for Change is what helps you to become the person as a mentor and how to really be that strong leader to help guide persons. And so we are open to have a Leadership for Change program for the ICN for the region. And I would gladly, that's why I shared my email with you all. We would gladly have that program with you all. So think about it and know that we are available. Oh my goodness. We're just graduated one cohort in Eleuthera, and on the 18th of this month, I go into Grand Bahama, where we'll be graduating another cohort. And so it's a powerful program. And what happened at the graduation, we have the ICN executives, they join us for the graduation via Zoom. It is a wonderful program, and I promise you, think about it, you would love it. You would grow from it, and you would become better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Priscilla.
Thank
Back
you.
over to you,
Thank you.
Rosalind.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks again so much for what you have done and said to us tonight. Could we get a nice round of applause for person, for your hand sharing? If you put on your mic for 2 seconds and give a good clap, or put up your hand clapping, we say thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well done.
Beautiful. Okay. So we're going to be moving on to our second speaker for tonight.
Sorry,
And
can I sit in on the second piece of it, just in case?
Sure, and you can come back next week, Friday, if you want to.
Okay, ma'am.
Sorry, good evening. Did you share your contact? You said Mrs. Roll?
It's in the chat.
It's in the chat?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
okay.
And for
All
those
right.
who are asking, we do have the PowerPoint. Priscilla, do we have permission to share the PowerPoint?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. So our second presentation tonight will be, we have performance evaluation by Miss Morvet Waith, a lecturer of Lewiston in Jamaica. Mrs. Morvet Waith is a registered nurse, a certified emergency room nurse, and a nurse educator. Mrs. Waith holds a BSc with honors, an MSc in nursing education, and is presently an MPhil PhD student. She is currently a lecturer and coordinator of the Masters in Nursing Administration program at the University School of Nursing, Mona, Jamaica. Mrs. Waith serves on committees at the Nursing Council of Jamaica and the Nurses Association of Jamaica. She is the chair of the Membership Involvement Committee of the Omega chapter of Sigma Theta Chi Tau International Honor Society of Nursing. She is also a member of the Emergency Nurses Association, that is the ENA, in the United States. Mrs. Waith is passionate about nursing leadership and professionalism. Her current research focus on just culture in nursing. Mrs. Waith has been married for 25 years and is a mother of 3. She uses her downtime to maintain a garden and deliberately engages in self-care activities. Beautiful, beautiful stress downtime, gardening. Ladies, I give you Mrs. Morvet Waith as your next presenter. Give her your utmost and undivided attention. Continue with the Apprentice Leadership Program. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
You are hearing me.
Yes, we can hear you.
It is
yes.
lovely to be in the presence of my colleagues. Must declare, I am not a midwife, but I am a nurse, and we are joined by the care that we offer to our colleagues, what we offer to our patient community, our region, and the globe. I am happy to be here this afternoon, this evening. Thank you for the kind invitation to join you this evening as we continue developing our nurses and our nurse leaders. May I have permission to share? Do I have permission to share? Okay, I can go right ahead.
Yes, you do.
One moment, please. I just like to say too that I am using Hotspot because I don't know what happened. The internet, I'm right next to the box, but I'm using hotspot. So please grant me permission when I start the presentation, if I may just close the video while I do the presentation so it saves on the bandwidth. Thank you so very much. All right, I will share at this time. Okay, my evaluation. And then I will share. Are you able to see my slides?
Not yet, but it's coming.
Not as yet, but I think it's loading, yes.
There you go, yes.
All right, so I'm going to start from the
slideshow.
Right, and from the beginning. It's a pleasure to be here with you all this afternoon. And as you heard in the introduction, I am the membership involvement chair of the Omega Kappa chapter that is based in Jamaica. However, our members are from several countries in the region. And so it's not just the University of the West Indies School of Nursing, but we do have colleagues who are part of our chapter. And as you can see from my background, that our logo is right there. We have colleagues from Haiti, from Trinidad, from the Bahamas, and even from the United States in our chapter. Colleagues who are nurses here in Jamaica, midwives here in Jamaica, and who would have migrated. So Omega Kappa chapter and Sigma Theta Tau are big on nursing excellence. So that's just putting the plug there for the Sigma Theta Tau International as we honor our nurses. And so this afternoon, like it was mentioned earlier, evaluation. All right, it's telling me my internet is unstable. So let me just close the, one moment, please. I'm trying to close my camera because I think that is what is creating. All right, but you're still hearing me though?
Yes.
I am still right here making the presentation. So we're going to have a little icebreaker because as we get comfortable and prepare ourselves for this presentation, it's a lot of information. And as we transition from that first presentation over into this one, I just want to put this icebreaker here. It is saying that it was late Sunday evening when April was killed. Her friend Claire said, I came by during the day and saw her cleaning. Her friend Melanie, on the other hand, said, I went to the post office and came back late. While her neighbor John said, I came by at 2 p.m. and I found her dead. Who is not telling the truth here? You may raise your hand to offer your response, or you may type it in the chat, but just give it a few seconds to think about it, because sometimes when information is presented to us, we can't always just take it for granted and run with the information. We have to do a little decision making, and decision making takes some time. We have to critically analyze and look at all the information that we have in front of us and to make a decision. So this scenario is presented to you. Who do you think is not telling the truth? Anybody? I am not able to see the chat. Can you please monitor the chat or the raise hand feature? Okay, I'm seeing the chat. Let me see. Arlea says Melanie is not telling the truth. Why did you say that, Arlea? If you could type it in the chat as well. Why?
Unmute your mic, Melanie. I mean,
okay.
Arlea.
Arlea, yes. And to share with us why you Melanie was not
good night.
telling the truth about. Good night, we're hearing you.
Go ahead, Aliyah.
Her response is kind of suspicious to me because she went to the post office and came back late. She's given an excuse already, and no one well, it's not in the scenario, but I'm thinking no one has accused her.
Very good thinking, very good thinking. And I'm seeing here in the chat where Rhonda, pardon me, who's speaking?
Patrice said Claire.
Patrice said Claire. And then Rhonda said Melanie, because post offices are closed on a Sunday. Well, usually. That's a very good point. Anyone agreeing with Rhonda? And then I see here, I think it's John because she was alive at 2 p.m. It said she died late on Sunday evening. The midwives are really thinking. You're really thinking. The critical thinking is coming out. All right. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I will tell you this. Both Melanie and the neighbor John were not telling the truth.
Exactly.
And like it was said in the chat, post offices are not usually open on a Sunday. And then John said he went by at 2, but it's the first part of the statement said it was late Sunday evening when April was killed. 2 p.m. is not late on a Sunday evening.
Exactly.
So both Melanie and John were lying. You thought it was John. You were partially correct. And then because John said he went there at 2 p.m. and found her dead, who would have opened the door to let him in because he's just a neighbor? So you see, a lot of thinking has to go on. So sometimes when you have information presented to you, don't just, act on it or run with it, as we say here in Jamaica, but think about it. Use what we call the decision-making trees to help you to arrive at your conclusion. And then the second part of, if my slide would just move, I'm trying to get it to move to the next one. One moment, please. My slide is not advancing.
Click on the icebreaker slide.
Yes,
Right.
I'm doing that.
And then
Okay,
now.
there it is. There it is. Can you see the brain teaser?
Yes.
All right. So in another minute or so, we'll be ending this portion, but I want you to guess these 3 words or phrases that are listed here. You see number 1, and then there is number 2, and then number 3 is consisting of those 3 words that are there. Anybody can say what number 1 is saying to you? What is that phrase or word? Any takers? Would you like me to share the answer?
Sound like a song to me.
It sounds like a lady. And I saw it first. I said, yes, I started singing that song, but that's not it. But good try. Anyone else? No?
No.
Okay. You want to try?
No.
Okay, you see that first word lady that is underlined there? That's a clue. The correct response is first lady.
Oh.
It's first lady.
First lady.
First lady. All right. So, yes.
Okay.
The second
Gotcha.
one, anybody was able to start thinking about the second one as yet?
For instance.
You're on the right track. Think about it again. Start saying it several times.
Stance.
No.
For
Somebody was just saying something.
In the chat, somebody has, for instance.
Very good. Who was that? Lenessa Davis said it's for instance, and that is correct. You see, if we were not in the Zoom land and if we were in a physical setting, this is where I'll be giving out my prizes for those persons who are participating and getting the correct answer. It is for instance, because the numeral 4 is within that word stance. So it's for instance. So if you say it several times, for instance, for instance, for instance. All right, very good. So now we're getting the hang of it. And the final one is that one that's right there. It may be a little bit more challenging, but it's something that we should not be. Well, let's see if you're able to guess what it is.
Short and sweet. Short and sweet.
No, not short and sweet. It's actually using the word shut and it's actually using the word sit. That's a clue right there.
Short and
Look at where look at where the words are. Who just said that? Who is this bright spark need to come to the front of the class? Who just said that?
I did.
All right, very good. It is shut up and sit down. You realize the word shut is at the top, it's up, and the word sit is at the bottom, it's down. So it's shut up and sit down. So sometimes these are little things, the little clues that are there for you to look at. It's not just what is presented to you that should be taken at face value, but it's sometimes they're clues. And you know, back in the day, our newspaper here in Jamaica, and I've seen it for other newspapers, when persons want to share something with someone else, they put an ad in the newspaper and it's just for that one particular person. Maybe because I like to watch a lot of mystery movies, I will see this as well. So sometimes you see an ad in the paper and it doesn't make sense to you because the ad is not for you. It is a message being sent to someone in particular who will buy the newspaper, and they will be sharing clues and sharing information with each other. All right, so that was my brain tease and icebreaker for today. I mean, this is something that you can always use to lighten up your meeting, to lighten up your staff meeting. They're about to start. You don't just get right into the heavy discussion and the meat of the matter. You start off with something like this. And I'm happy that I got the participation from so many of you. Thank you all so very much. However, we are going to be moving now into the next section, which is the main reason why I'm here today, and the main reason why you're also here this evening, staying with me for this, staying in the seminar for this long. We're going to be talking about performance evaluation, which is also known as performance appraisal. And so by the end of the presentation, we are expecting that we'll all be able to, one, describe performance appraisal, two, state the purposes for conducting the performance appraisal, identify factors that influence effective performance appraisal. And I deliberately put the word effective there, but not just the factors that influence performance appraisal, but an effective performance appraisal. To also examine strategies to ensure accurate performance appraisal. And then we will be describing the different types of performance appraisal tools. There are many that are out there. Not all are used in nursing and midwifery, nor in healthcare, but there are some that are actually used regularly. And to outline strategies to overcome the difficulties that you may face as you conduct your performance appraisal, particularly for those who are going to be new managers and new leaders. Performance appraisal can be really very difficult. And to identify the role of anecdotal record, which is really very important in performance appraisal. And we'll also intertwine into that objective the feedback mechanism that is in place for performance appraisal. All right. So it is asking here, what is performance appraisal? Before we can get into what all that we need to talk about this evening, we want to know what is performance appraisal. And so Janes in 2016 described performance evaluation, which we also said is performance appraisal, as just one small step in what is called the performance management system. They are not one and the same. Performance management system is the bigger picture, and the evaluation or the appraisal is just a very small portion of it. It is also described as the process of evaluating an employee's past work and accomplishments with the purpose of rating their performance. So it's not just about evaluating what they have done and what they have achieved, but there's a purpose for doing it. And it's here, James is saying that it is for rating their performance. But the Business Dictionary went a little bit further to say that the process by which a manager examines and evaluates the employee's work behavior by comparing it with preset standards. So the Business Dictionary is now bringing another aspect into performance evaluation by speaking about the preset standards. What are the predetermined standards that need to be in place before you can start to do the examination and evaluation of the employee's work? Because if there are no standards in place, what are you going to be assessing? What are you going to be evaluating? And it also went on to speak about documenting the results of the comparison. So you just don't do the comparison of the work over the last 6 months or the last a year, compare it with the standards that you would have set, but you're also required to document the findings, document the results of that comparison. What were the objectives that were set 6 months ago? Where are we at today, 6 months later? Are you able to meet it and to document that? However, these two authors here, Van Dijk and Schold, went on to posit that you also have to use those results to give feedback to the employee, to show them where they are, where the improvements are required, and why do you need to improve in these areas. So even when you have those predetermined standards, you also need to provide feedback. And I think a number of institutions, agencies, organizations and even us as managers, sometimes we fall short in providing the feedback. And as we get a little bit closer to the end of the presentation, we're going to talk a little bit more about providing feedback and why it is important to give feedback to our junior staff members and team members. There's another part of performance evaluation that says it is a formal and productive procedure to measure the employee's work and results based on their responsibilities. Here it is that the responsibility that we spoke about earlier is their standards or the job description, but it is said here, it is a formal procedure. We did say it was a process. It is a formal process, and it is used to measure the work that the employee would have done. All right. So now that we have described performance appraisal, why do we need to do it? Don't we already have enough on our plates as managers? Why are we doing performance appraisal? It is much more than us as managers. We ought to think about the employees, and we ought to think about the organization that we are serving. Yes? So appraisals, according to Markey and Houston, play a central role in the employers. Those are the persons who are, taking you on into their organization, who are guiding you, coaching, and they are paying you at the end of the month or the end of the year, whenever you get your remuneration. A part of their central role in their process rather is the appraisal. A lot of organizations, they invest a lot in human resource management, and part of it is performance appraisal because they are big. All businesses, even healthcare is a very big business. And so one of those tools that measure the standards is their performance appraisal. Some organizations or employee will still base promotion and pay and retention decisions on the appraisal. So for those very reasons, when you would have done your performance appraisal, you are expected to either be promoted, you are going to be remunerated a little bit more, you are going to be retained into the organization, or you're going to be dismissed. So the performance appraisal will provide these purposes to them. The appraisal as well allows us as leaders, as well as our subordinates who we are appraising, the chance to develop a plan for correcting any deficiencies, any shortcomings that the employee may have, and to reinforce the things that they are doing right. So we don't want to spend a lot of time on talking about what wasn't done well and why they didn't do well. Also, look at providing the feedback and letting them know what they are doing well. I find a lot of times, I have had the experience a performance appraisal has been done, and it's 80% of what I've done, I've achieved the objective, but my evaluator spent quite a bit of time talking about the 20% that was not done right. I'm not saying it should not be mentioned, but you also need to spend a lot of time talking about what was done right, because even if it's done right, there's always room for improvement, even when they're doing it right. And so you are to develop a plan. Don't just do the appraisal, document it, and you put it on the file. There ought to be a plan in place. How do we move forward? Where do we go from here after completing the performance appraisal? And it ties right back into this very point, facilitating career planning. Appraisal provide an opportunity for us to review the employees' career plans. When you sit with your nurses and midwives and say to them, where do you see yourself in this organization in the next 5 years? Do you see yourself remaining with us? What does your career plan look like for 10 years' time? If it's not aligning with the goals and the mission and vision of the organization, you are going to lose them before it gets to that 5 or 10 year period. Because if they want to become a nurse anesthetist, for example, and there's no capacity, there's nothing in the organization that is going to allow them to move into a position like that, they're going to leave because they realize that this is not where they want to be in 5 or 10 years. So sit with them and provide that career planning. That is a part of your performance appraisal as well. And I know junior colleagues or work managers, you may be intimidated and say, but all of this I have to do. Yes, it is not going to be easy, but with coaching and mentoring as managers, you will get it done. It can be done. Performance appraisal is also done to help identify the training and development needs of the employees. So once you would have identified the shortcomings, the weaknesses, this is where you're planning for workshops, seminars, conferences, meetings, bringing in outsiders to speak, to do whatever you ought to develop to provide for the needs of the employees. Don't just identify the deficiencies and do nothing about it. speak with HR, speak with whoever, someone else from outside, whatever you have to do as managers to get that training and retraining done for your junior colleagues. Appraisal enables rather the supervisors to identify if there's a performance gap between the employee's performance and his or her standards. And they should also help to identify the cause for that particular gap if there are any gaps, and what are the steps that you're going to be taking to remediate. So the performance appraisal is done for several reasons. Now, as we move into the next slide, we did say we are going to be identifying factors that will influence effective performance appraisal. And here we are with them on screen. We must be able to base the performance evaluation on standards to which the employees or other employees rather in the same classification are going to be held accountable. So you cannot evaluate a level 1 nurse with a level 4 or 5 nurse, for example, or midwife, because those individuals at a higher level are expected to do other things, are expected to be engaging in other activities in terms of, leadership or in terms of additional training, etc. So the same tool or the same standard by which you evaluate one employee should be the same for the same classification. You can't import an appraisal tool and manipulate it and adjust it to suit. No, it has to be something that is set in terms of standards, and the job description is something that can be used to determine what is that standard that we are looking at. These standards must be communicated clearly to the employees at the very beginning of hiring them. As new hires, they ought to be told what the standards are and when the evaluation will be done. So you can't tell them, oh, I'm coming by to evaluate you next week. No, that should never be something that we are engaging in as leaders and managers. Let them know at the beginning of their contract that you will be evaluated at month 3, month 6, month 9, month 12, whatever it is. It's clear in their mind. They have their job descriptions. They understand the policies and procedures of the organization. They understand the mission, vision, and goals of the organization. You meet with them on first day or first week of hire, and you set your objectives with them at the beginning. The appraisal tool that you will be selecting to use or that the organization utilizes for performance appraisal must adequately and accurately assess the job performance. There are many tools, and we're going to talk about them shortly, but you have to ensure that the tool that is selected or that the organization has developed is one that will be adequately and accurately assessing the job performance of the employees. And the employee, this is a very sore point for some of us as managers in nursing rather, and midwifery and healthcare in general. The employee should have an input into development of the standards. And you're asking why? Why would we want to have the employees? Because when you allow them to establish certain standards, they are going to be held accountable for the standard that they have helped to develop. Yes, they are going to be held even at a higher standard because you had an input into this. And this is something that is usually done, especially for professional employees like nurses or midwives or those of us in the healthcare organizations. We are a professional group, and who is best to set standards for us than nurses ourselves or for midwives? Yes, we should not be allowing others who are not familiar with the scope of nursing and midwifery to be developing standards for us. We are the ones who are carrying out the responsibilities, the duties, and we are meeting the criteria. We should not be allowing others to set standards for us. We have set the standards, and so we start with practicing with our new hires, new employees, and when we have our new managers who are being trained to conduct performance appraisal, this is something that needs to be shared with them, that they should allow employees to have input. It's not going to be the entire standards that will be developed by them, but certainly some of those can be developed by them. And so when you are reviewing after a 3, 4, 5 year period, those performance appraisal tools, because tools need to be evaluated and adjusted according to what is happening in terms of healthcare, because healthcare industry changes rapidly. Tomorrow morning, you may wake up and hear of something else happening, because look at what happened with COVID. COVID has asked us to pivot and to do things a little bit differently. So some things will change. So ensure that your employees, your colleagues, your team members you're evaluating, that they have a chance to develop some of the standards as well. Employees must know in advance what will happen if these standards are not met. So you can't surprise them at the end of the performance appraisal, rather to say, oh, you did not meet these objectives, and so therefore you are going to be demoted, to be terminated, to be transferred, whatever it is. They should know from the beginning, when you would have hired them, what will happen if those standards are not met. They should also know the sources of the data that you're gathering for their appraisal. And this is very important. You do not want the employee to act in a particular way over a 1 year period, and at the end of the 1 year, you're saying to them, well, your supervisor, your peers, the patients, your colleagues, you know, the other persons in the medical field would have said this about you. We're looking at your anecdotal record here to say that on this day, this is what happened, etc. They should know the source from which you are gathering that information that will help them in conducting the appraisal. You, the appraiser, should also be someone who has observed the employee's work. So it would be very unwise to have you perform this appraisal for an employer or colleague who you have never supervised, who you have never observed. That will not be a true appraisal. It will not be a true evaluation. And so the main appraiser should be someone with whom the employee has been working and would have supervised them or observed their day-to-day activity in the unit. You also can get information from other supervisors. For example, if the employee was transferred to your unit, for example, a month ago or 2 months ago or 3 months ago, you can get the input from previous supervisors, someone who would have observed them working. But for the most part, if you will be appraising your team member, you should have observed them as they work. Performance appraisal is more likely to have a positive outcome if the appraiser is viewed with trust and professional respect. And I cannot say this just once and leave it there. I have to repeat. Performance appraisal is more likely to have a positive outcome if the appraiser is viewed with trust and professional respect. And I say this to you, colleagues, as you are, if you're a junior manager, you're just been promoted into the post as a manager or a leader, and you were respected when you were at the same level as your colleagues, but you are now in charge of them, it will be much easier for you. But if you were having difficulties, and if you were someone who they did not have a very good relationship with, someone who they didn't trust when you were junior with them, or someone who they could not confide in when you were junior with them, they will not be able to trust you when you become a manager. That is the harsh reality. So if you are still junior, you're just about to embark on your leadership and management portfolio, I would implore you to take a step back and to look, evaluate, reflect on what you would have done prior to this particular moment. Was I honest with my colleagues? Was I honest with my evaluators when I was being evaluated as a junior staff member? How did I treat my colleagues? How did I treat patients? Was I always, late for work? Was I absent without calling in, etc.? Look at what you have been doing. And because nursing and midwifery, we are role models as managers and leaders, and you should start that role modeling even before you become a leader and a manager, so that when you get to that point and you're appraising individuals, they can say, yes, I trust you to do my evaluation because you've always been performing at a particular level, someone who I look up to, and it's not too late. This is not what I'm saying, is not describing you, it's not too late. You can start from now. You can start from now to build that trust and to develop that respect. Yes, you show respect to your colleagues, and they in turn will show respect to you. So as we move forward into talking about the different strategies that will help us to ensure that we are performing accurate appraisals, there are some points that we have to mention. I'm going to be just mentioning a few of them. They're not all listed here and will not be discussed here, but I decided to just take from the different sources the main ones that I think we ought to be hearing about tonight and to be discussing tonight. And the first one says the appraiser should develop an awareness regarding his or her biases and prejudices. Now, what does that mean? We are human beings. We will have biases, we will have prejudices, but where we draw the line, if you're not aware of them, or you refuse to be aware of them, or you're denying that they are there, this is where we have a problem. You ought to develop that emotional intelligence. And one of the key cornerstones of emotional intelligence is your self-awareness. You should understand that you have biases, you have prejudices, because guess what? We are human beings. So you allow or not to allow that to come into play when you are conducting your performance appraisal for your team members will make a difference. You ought to ensure that you are aware of your biases and your prejudices. Become one with them, understand them, know when they should come out and when they should not. The next point says consultation should be sought frequently. Ensure that you are, as new managers, and I said this earlier, that performance appraisal is difficult. I have had to, one moment please, I'm seeing comments in the chat. Let me see this. The thing is that people who were respected when you were with them on the floor, as soon as they become managers, their entire attitude will change. Yes, that is also very true. And there's another question: how long should you work with someone before you can appraise them? It is very important, and I thank you for the question, and pardon me for breaking what I'm saying just to respond, because I want to address it as soon as it comes up. There is no hard and
Sorry, do you want them to raise their hands if they have a question in the middle of the presentation? Would you?
This is a discussion. It's not a formal presentation per se. And sometimes when individuals hear me speak about something and it's burning and they want to, before they lose their train of thought, yes, raise your hand, and you can always interject and let me know that there's a hand raised, and I'll take the question and respond accordingly. But Deborah,
beautiful.
You're welcome. Deborah asked, how long should you work with someone before you can appraise them? And I was saying that there is no hard and fast rule about that. It depends on the organization, and it also depends on the situation. You may have someone who you're working with now as an appraiser, or someone you are supervising for the first time, but you would have known them before you became a manager and in the position now to appraise them. And as I speak a little bit more, you're going to understand that appraisal is not just done at this moment, and you cannot appraise someone for more than outside of the appraisal period. So for example, at the University of the West Indies, our appraisal is yearly. So when I go into an appraisal, for example, I'm not expecting, my head of school to be appraising me for work that was done 3 years ago, because the appraisal is every year. So I'm expecting that we will set objectives for 1 year. And so at the end of that 1 year, that is when we will sit and we will discuss what I've been able to achieve or not achieve, etc. Were my objectives and goals met, not met, or surpassed, that sort of a thing. So I would say to you, Deborah, there's no hard and fast rule. Understand what the organizational culture is as well. That is also going to be impacting on the appraisal system within your organization. But I would say to you, you have to, if you're doing this for the very first time, I would suggest that you have a senior individual sit with you as you do the appraisal. And remember, we're going to be talking about the tools. And I did say that you should collect data from different sources to do your appraisal. So don't rely only on the job description. You also want to look at, someone who would have supervised the individual before you became the supervisor to be doing the appraisal now. So you gather information from different sources to help you to appraise the individual. And one of the things I want to point out, if you're new into your managerial role, I would suggest that you take the opportunity to meet with your staff members, even for 10 minutes, individually for 10 minutes, to get to know them, to understand who they are, for them to understand who you are and what you're about and what the goals are, and to see where you can, set your objectives from that point onwards, and highlight to them when you'd like to see them again, and what are some of the things that you will be looking for as you appraise them. over the particular period. Some organization is every 6 months, some will say every year, some will say 2 years, 3 years, depending. So look at what is happening in your organization, and then you can be guided from that. If not, you seek the support of senior personnel who are able to help you. And appraisal is not something that is done and you understand it overnight. It takes some time. So junior staff members should be coached into appraising. It should not be something you just get the job as a manager and you're automatically an expert in appraisal. No, it takes some time. All right, so thank you for the question and thank you for the comment as well. All right, so we're gonna move into talking about, here we are talking about gathering the data adequately and appropriately. And I alluded to that earlier when I said you ought to ask the co-workers, the user anecdotal records as part of your data gathering as well. If the person was transferred to your unit, go back to the unit and ask the supervisors about them, etc. And you are to stick to that one particular period of appraisal. Don't go beyond that. If you're appraising the individual over a 1 year period, don't go outside of that. Don't look at what happened 2, 3, 4 years ago. And if there was a critical incident, for example, and the individual was reprimanded, don't bring that up here. It was dealt with already, don't keep bringing it back, all right? And then the next point is keep accurate anecdotal record for the length of the appraisal period. I will not be delving too much into the anecdotal record because I have an entire 2, 3, 4 slides nearer to the end of the presentation that will speak specifically for anecdotal records. But suffice it to say though, that it is important that you keep accurate anecdotal records. And writing an anecdotal record will require that you have a standard in place in your organization. And it will vary from organization to organization, from agency to agency. The anecdotal record and how it needs to be recorded, whether you are going to be recording the date and the time, who were the witnesses. And anecdotal record doesn't mean that it's something that was, it was an adverse event. No, it could be something that was well done by the appraisee, and you have the opportunity to witness it and you're documenting it as it happens. And remember, when you're writing these records, do not interpret the action, write them as they occur. Do not say it seems as if, or it appears to. That is suggestive. Write exactly what you see from your eyes. And it should not be something that is shared with you to say, oh, your colleague said that this happened on the shift, unless they have the evidence to prove and to bring to you, and it is discussed with you, and then you make a note. And so as leaders, I'm plugging it right here, that as nurse leaders and junior nurses who are going to become nurse leaders in the future, or midwives in the future, future midwifery leaders, that you always should have a journal, a book, of some record for which you are keeping your anecdotal records. Always walk with a notepad, something. And as soon as the incident occurs, you start documenting. Do not rely on your memory. I know that now, because as I got a little bit older, I realized, Marvet Wade cannot rely on her memory. It will fail me. It has failed me. So as soon as something happens, just start your documentation. Writing it down is most important. All right, so let's move on, because I will speak about anecdotal record and the role it will play in the performance appraisal shortly. The next one says we are to collect positive data and identify the area where improvement is needed. And I mentioned this earlier. Not everything that is negative that happened with the individual who we are preparing to appraise. There are positive things that our colleagues do, and we do not celebrate. And it was just today I was speaking with my head of school, and I was saying to her, we as nurses, as midwives, we do not celebrate each other as much as we should. We do not. It's as if we undervalue the effort and the work that we have done. Some things will pass us by and we will say, oh, that's nothing. You look well put together today, you look beautiful, you're smiling, something is happening, congratulations, keep up the good work. But the moment something, quote unquote, negative happens, we see that as a moment to make a note of it and it becomes a record. No, it should not always be about the negative things. There are areas that the individual can improve on. They may be doing something is positive, but it is not 100% positive. There are areas that they can improve on. Use the time to make a note of it. And at the same time as you document, start thinking of the plan that you can put in place to help them to improve their performance. Include the employee's own appraisal of his or her performance. And this is where self-appraisal will come in. But I've dedicated a few slides as well to speak specifically to self-appraisal because it's becoming a big part of performance appraisal now. Who knows how best you perform except the person who's doing the performance? You. And so there should always be the opportunity for your staff member, your employee, your subordinate, your team member, however you want to term the individual, to appraise themselves and their performance. Guard against what is called the halo effect, the horns effect, the central tendency trap, and what is also called the Matthew effect. Now you may be wondering, what are those things Mrs. Waite is speaking about? And as I define them now, I would encourage you to think about whether or not you have had appraisals or appraisers rather, who would have engaged in halo effect. If you yourself has engaged in halo, horns, central tendency trap, or Matthew's effect at any point at all. Now, let's talk quickly about what the halo effect is. It is saying the halo effect occurs when the appraiser will allow one or two positive aspects of the assessment or the appraisal or the behavior of the appraisee to unduly influence all other aspects of their performance. So someone is always coming to work early, neatly attired, but they're not performing. They're very rude to the patient. You know, they're not doing what they're expected to do. You have a lot of complaints about that, but you allow the fact that this individual comes to work diligently, always on time, to overshadow this. That is what is known as the halo effect. So those one or two instances where it's purely positive overshadow all other aspects. So you just tick away. If it's a checklist you're using, you tick away at everything. Yes, she's always on time, so she should be no. You are to be very objective in your performance appraisal. There is always going to be some level of subjectivity going on, and we're going to talk about that when we discuss the tools. However, don't allow that to happen. And then the opposite of the halo effect is a horns effect. And this is when the appraiser allows some of the negative things that the employee would, you would notice about the employee's performance. It affects the entire evaluation. So that one negative event overshadows everything else. So the halo is when the positive overshadows, and the negative is when it will term as the horns effect. No, central tendency is, and this happens that as the literature is saying to me when I was doing, preparing to make the presentation, the literature is saying many of our new managers, a study that was done showed that at least 75% of the new managers in that particular study would engage in central tendency trap. And this is saying the manager who falls into the central tendency trap is hesitant to risk true assessment and therefore will rate all employees as average. You don't want to rate them too positively. You don't want to rate them too negatively. So you stay right in the middle, that central tendency, and you just rate all of your employees as average. No, this is going to say something negative about you as the manager, because how are you managing an area, managing a unit, managing a team of individuals, and all of them are receiving the same evaluation? All of them are the same. There's nobody who's doing better than another person. Nobody is outstanding in a particular area. Do not fall into the central tendency trap. Be as objective as the tool will allow you to be and rate them accordingly. And then there is what is called the Matthew effect. And I'm hoping that you are just making your notes. If not, if you want me to repeat something, let me repeat it. But I will share the slides with Dr. Curtis at the end of the presentation, so you can have access to it. But the Matthew effect occurs when the team member, the worker, receive the same appraisal results year after year after year after year. They have never done better. They have not done anything less. It's always the same every year. So the person will just walk into their appraisal expecting, this is what I'm going to get this year again. This is what I got last year. So this can negatively impact, especially when it comes on to for promotion to be, considered for promotion, to be considered for increase in salary. This can have a negative effect on your team members. So be mindful of that. Try not to engage in it at all. Use the tools that are for you, that are for the employee, and rate them as objectively as you can. I'm seeing a chat. It says powerful presentation. This is, thank you very much. I hope I don't massacre your name. Is it Prescola? Thank you for that. Yes. This is something that I'm really very passionate about, performance appraisal, and having to do with building team members, because as leaders, we ought to be in each other's corner. The next point says, ask the employee how the organization or the manager can help them to be successful. This is not about just you, the manager. This is not about just the employee. This is also about the employee being successful, because when you have successful employees, you will have successful agency, successful team members, successful team, successful unit, organization, agency, and it translates across the board to successful healthcare delivery systems. So be mindful that you are going to be focusing on ensuring that your employees are successful, because it is like having children. Don't you feel good when your children are successful? Today we had here in Jamaica our primary students who would have been receiving their primary exit profile results that will help them to transition into the high school setting. And it's just joy and celebration around, because they're happy that their children did well and they're going to the best high school that they can, send them to, etc. You are happy. You rejoice when your employees are successful, because it says a lot about you as well, the manager, and you should be aiming for that as well. And if your employees are successful, it's translating that the outcomes for the patient will be very positive, because if you have successful employees, obviously, they're doing what they need to do so that they're providing the right care for the patients who are expecting you to be providing quality patient care. All right, so we are going to be heading now into the methods or the tools that we use. There are many more tools than the ones I'm going to be presenting here tonight. So don't be too caught up in, oh, this is not the one we use, or, maybe this is something. Yes, if it is something that you think you can use, maybe this is something you can raise with your employers. This may be something you want to raise with them. All right. So let us talk quickly about them now, because there are quite a number of them. The first one is what is called the trait rating scale. And as you can see on the slide, one moment, I see a comment. Oh, thank you so very much, Bernadette. Thank you for that. And like I said, if you want to open your microphone and ask a question, make a comment, feel free to. I will just put my finger on my notes here to remind me of, where I am in my my articulation of what I am presenting here tonight. And so trait rating scale, as it says here, it rates an individual against a set standard, like the job description. And that is why job descriptions have to be specific to the classification of the employees, because you cannot rate a level 4 nurse or midwife with a junior person who's just coming on. There are things that they are not going to be able to do. There are objectives that they will not be able to meet, and so you cannot rate them. But this one speaks specifically to rating them against a standard. It is said here that it is the oldest type of rating scale. And I do know that quite a number of our healthcare agency will use portions of rating scale on their own appraisal tool. I know a number of tools that are out there being utilized in performance appraisal are a combination of different tools. So as I'm presenting here tonight, you may want to look to see which of these are we utilizing in our own setting. So that it goes on to say, this particular tool, though, is subject to central tendency, which we spoke about earlier, where you just rate everybody right down the middle. Nobody is better than anybody. Nobody's doing very well or nobody's doing poorly. Or the halo or horns effect. This tool is subject to those as well. So although you try to be as subjective as possible, it lends itself to some subjectivity there, where you might engage in halo or the horns effect. And we want to steer away from that. But the literature went on to say that rating personal traits and behavior, like I said before, is the oldest type, because as nurses, there are certain behaviors, and midwives, there are certain behaviors that we're looking for that will be unique to us as a professional group. And so the scale that is used for midwife, for example, should not be used for nurses who are not midwives, because there are some things that the midwife will do and should be doing and can do that a nurse who's not trained in midwifery should not be doing or can't do. Similarly for critical care nurse versus a nurse on the medical surgical ward, etc. So even within any one organization, you may find tools are going to be different depending on the specialization, for example. Or they may have a particular tool that covers everybody, but you are to skip this particular section and move to the next section, etc. So you may find that happening as well. And it says here, instead, many organizations will use 2 or more rating methods or tools to conduct their performance appraisal, because they will find that no one tool is going to be able to meet the needs of their performance management system. And here is one, and I'm very sorry if you're not able to see all of the fine print and the words that there, but I'm going to just describe it for you. This is what is called a job dimension scale. And that is what I alluded to earlier, that a particular job description is going to be used for different classifications of individual, and so the rating scale will have to be done that way as well. So I mentioned earlier the midwife versus the nurse who is not trained in midwifery, or the intensive care nurse who is trained in that particular specialization. You can't use a tool that you're going to be using to rate him or her for the nurse who is just a medical surgical nurse who has no post-basic training, etc. This tool rates the performance on job requirements. And as you can see on screen, this is one that is for an industrial nurse, where on the left, it tells you of the responsibilities or the requirements. The first one says to render first aid and treat job-related injuries and illnesses. So this is specific to the industrial nurse, and it's on what we call a Likert type scale, where if you look to the bottom of the scale, it says that 5 will denote that the employee would have performed excellent, 4 for good, 3 for satisfactory, 2 for fair, and 1 for poor. So the person who is appraising this industrial nurse would rate that nurse 5 if he or she was excellent in rendering first aid and treating job-related illnesses and injuries, and so on, and hold fitness classes for the workers would rate him or her, based on what they were able to observe the industrial nurse would do. It says that the job dimension scale requires that a rating scale be constructed for each job classification, and that the factors are taken from the context of the written job description. So you can't take from the job description of an industrial nurse to rate a midwife, because the midwife is not an industrial nurse, unless the midwife is actually practicing in a particular setting where he or she has been hired as the industrial nurse, and you would have accepted the job based on what is going to be required of you, and if you're able to fulfill those requirements. All right, so that is the job dimension scale. Now there is one that is called the behaviorally anchored rating scale, or BARS for short, and it rates the job expectation on a scale of importance to the position. So those requirements that are most important are going to be at the top of the scale. And as you move further down, those that are considered least important are going to be listed further down, and the ratings are going to be quite different. This particular tool is sometimes called the behavioral expectation scale, and it is used to overcome some of the weaknesses that we would have identified that be inherent in the other rating scale that we spoke about earlier. But this one in particular focuses on just the behaviors of the individual that you are appraising. And it requires that a separate form be in place for each of the job classification. Now, this particular tool, some part of it may be utilized for our professional setting because there are certain job requirements that we would have, but then it can't be used for others because it is not, it's not fitting for them. This tool is not readily used in healthcare because, in its entirety, because it is very tedious. It's costly for the organization, especially large organizations, if they have several different classifications. Because if you look, for example, at nurses, the plethora of classification that we have for nurses. Yes, even on one unit, you may have several different classifications of nurses. And so it will require them to be printing and to be engaging in, getting the tool for each of the classification on any one unit. So it's not readily used in its entirety in healthcare, but it is used in terms of it, different portions of it can be taken and retrofitted, and we can make our own appraisal tool with some of the behavioral aspects of it coming from the BARS tool. Here is now an example of the BARS. You can see on the left where the scale values are. You will see 7 for excellent. And this is the criteria now on the right. You will assign a score of 7 to the employee if he or she, for example, develops a comprehensive project plan, documents it well, obtains the required approval, and distributes it to the plan to all of those who are concerned. But then you would rate the individual unacceptable and a score of 1 if this individual seldom, if ever, complete the project because of a lack of planning and does not seem to care, and this individual fails consistently due to lack of planning and does not inquire about how to improve. So it ranges from a high of 1 a high of 7 to a low of 1. But one moment, it said Shernet Black, let me admit. A high of 7 to a low of 1, and you may find the average is at 4. But the different scales values can be added depending on your organization. Some will just use 3, some will use 5. But this one in the example is given a score of maximum of 7 for excellent, and say the individual would have been doing everything according to the job description, as opposed to unacceptable and a 1 if the person does not do what they're expected to do and fail to and show a lack of planning and doesn't seem to care, does not ask for support, does not ask for assistance, does not ask for feedback. All right, so that's the BARS, or the behaviorally anchored rating scale. Now there is one that is mostly used now in our setting in terms of healthcare, nursing, and midwifery will gravitate towards this. And a major portion of some of our tools will have this. This is a checklist where it rates the appraisal against a set list of the desirable job behavior. Yes, so you'll have a set of behaviors that you're expecting your colleagues to be engaging in over the 1-year period, over the 6-year period, or 3 months, whatever it is. And then you will rate them accordingly. So there are different types of checklists, and I think you were most familiar with some of them. There is a weighted scale checklist. And then there is the forced choice, where you answer yes or no, true or false about the individual's performance, or satisfactory and unsatisfactory. The entire tool should not be comprised of just the checklist, because it lends itself to an evaluation that is not befitting or true of the individual's performance. Because you may have colleagues who they're not satisfactory, but they're not unsatisfactory, they're somewhere in the middle. But the forced choice does not have that. It's either satisfactory or it's unsatisfactory. There's no in between. It's either yes or no. There's no in between. There's no maybe. And it's either true or false. Not sometimes true, sometimes false. So that's a forced choice. And then there is a simple checklist where you take the job description requirements, you put it there, and then you just rank them or rate them accordingly. You may have a Likert type where you have 1 or 2 or 3, but then you need to have descriptors for these types of ratings and the values that you would give to the ratings. How am I doing with time, colleagues? I'm seeing it 12 minutes past. 8? Okay, all right. I think I'm managing it well.
You-
Pardon me?
Yes, 8 o'clock your time.
8 o'clock my time? Oh, so I'm over my
Yes.
time?
No. You're
Okay,
doing
it is 8 o'clock here my time.
Yes.
Okay, all right, good. So those were the checklist types. So when you would have left this presentation today, maybe if you're not quite familiar with your checklist or with your performance appraisal tool, you may take the opportunity tomorrow, tomorrow, Saturday, Monday, or one day next week to look at it, to remind yourselves of some of the things that were discussed here today, and to look at where your tool is. What is it that you find that the tool is doing or not doing, and to see whether or not you want to approach your quality assurance or quality improvement team in your organization to see whether or not it is time to review, revise those tools, because you know, sometimes it is difficult for me to say, but when I look sometimes at some of the appraisal tool or some of the instruments that are used in healthcare to evaluate our staff members, you will see at the bottom of it, 1989, 2000. This is 2022. We're 22 years into 2000, and we're still using those tools that have been used to evaluate 22 years ago. Tools should be evaluated every 3 to 5. 1979, oh my, there's much work to be done here. There is much work to be done here. I am going to put this plug here to implore you to start the revision, because we have some generation of individuals that are coming into the professions that we have to ensure that we are capturing the essence of these individuals, utilizing the right evaluation tools for them. The tools that we use when I was a junior nurse, we can't use them for this millennial group or the generation that we have now. 2 different groups, and we do understand that we have quite a mix of generations working together on individual units. So we have to ensure that the tool, yes, you have outdated tools, but guess what? Is it Nikisha? This is my charge to you, Nikisha, that you ask to be part of the team that is going to evaluate and revise the tools so that they are meeting the needs of the employees and at the same time meeting the needs of the organization. I'm putting it back to you, Nikisha. Ask to be part of the quality improvement team to revise the tools. All right, thank you. All right, very good, very good. I'm holding you to that. All right, so we have talked about checklists, and here now is a sample checklist. These are some of the questions that you may find, and this is a yes or no that we spoke about earlier in terms of the forced choice checklist. This one is asking, does the employee lose his or her temper in public? That is so vague. Does the employee play favorites? Favorites to whom? You know, you're asked to either click yes or no. The employee could be playing favorites, but just you've never witnessed it. So you click no when someone else, if they were appraising them, will click yes. So a lot of subjectivity is coming out in the checklist tool. So it is not one that you will always want to use. You may want to consider it to be a portion of your tool, but not the one that is heavily weighted in terms of, especially if you're doing ranking to say you have to have a certain percentage or a certain score in order to be promoted. So you can't use, purely checklist. And it is heavily weighted for individuals like that or for scenarios like that. We have to be very careful about the kind of tools that we would select. All right. The next one is essay. And you're wondering, what does Mrs. Waite mean by essay? Essay for performance appraisal? Yes, essays can be used for performance appraisal. And an essay in short terminology is a narrative appraisal of the job description. This is where you sit and you write about the employee and the performance and the different interactions, and you write at length. It is also called free-form review. You just sit and you write. There's no structure in place for this particular kind of tool. You just have the individual's name, their department, how long they've been employed, to the organization, etc., what their qualifications are, etc. And then you write about the employee. It forces the appraiser to focus on the positive aspects of the employee's performance. You love that the tool, you love that tool. You love, okay, very good. So you have been using it. wonderful, but it is time consuming. And if you have a lot of time on your hands, and especially if you're not appraising a large number of individuals, this is a tool that you can use. But when you're working in an organization and you're managing a unit that has 35, 40, 50 individuals, this may not be the tool for you. It requires a lot of anecdotal record that you'll have to flip through your diary to see, or you'll have to have a diary specifically for this individual to say, let me look back at what Dr. Curtis had done within the past year. And a whole year of anecdotal record is a lot. Oh, Karen, you're saying, no, we don't have it, but I love the idea. Oh, you love the idea. You may also have, Karen, a part of your entire performance appraisal tool that has a portion of it that speaks to, putting a narrative there in an essay form, but then there are other portions like section A, section B, section C, etc. But you don't want a very thick, heavy document that is a performance appraisal tool, because truth be told, an appraisal can take 30 minutes or longer. I've had an appraisal that lasted 3 hours because there was a lot to talk about. Yes? But then you have appraisal, especially if you're doing for the first time, you as a new manager, you are going to want to be very meticulous, and you want to make sure you've dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's. So the essay may not be for you at that time. Maybe a small portion of it where just one particular aspect of it that you want to write on. Yes, it can lead to bias as well, because it says here at the bottom, some appraisers simply write better than others. I have colleagues in school here with me at the US School of Nursing who are they just write beautifully. They can use the best language, the best sentences, and describe things, and it transfers you to a time and a place where you think you were in the setting when they would have used all of the descriptors and they would have, laid it out, etc. But then there are some of us where that is not for us. You will write an essay when you have to, but you don't want to write an essay for 50 persons. And especially if you're going to be writing, all of the tool is just essay. It can be time consuming, it's very tedious, it's very costly too, because it's going to require you to spend a lot of time to do it, etc. And yes, Karen, it says bias can come in, because you're there writing about the individual, and then you're reminded, and this is where the halo can come in as well. You're reminded of a time and place when the individual did whatever, and you are just writing and writing. So you have to consider whether or not this particular tool in its entirety is for your organization, or you may want to use a portion of this in your performance appraisal tool for your organization, and what percentage of your tool will be essay. That is something to consider. And what weight will this essay have on the overall performance in terms of, whether you're going to be asking the HR to promote the individual or recommend the individual for to be demoted, or an increase in salary incrementally because of the percentage that they would have received. So you have to take that into consideration as well. So determine whether or not any of these tools of which I'm speaking is for your organization, for your unit in general. And then there's peer review. And this is something that I am passionate about, the peer review, especially in our professional setting. It says here, it is an assessment of work performance carried out by your peers. Your peers know you, you work with them on a day-to-day basis. It is widely used in medicine and academia. However, healthcare organizations have been slow to adopt this peer review. And I ask the question here, why? Why are we not embracing peer review? Why are we not gravitating towards it? Why are we not utilizing it more as part of our performance appraisal tool? I'm not recommending that it is the entirety, but I'm recommending that the portion of it be set aside specifically for peer review. And it says, when peers rather than supervisor carry out the monitoring and assessing of the work performance, it is referred to as peer review. Most likely the manager's review of the employee is not complete unless some type of peer review is done or gathered. And whether we like it or not, we ask for opinions of others. Whether it is solicited or unsolicited, we are going to get peer review. And if we do our introspection and sit and think about the time when I would have said to the manager, you know, I rather like Nurse Brown, her performance, and I'm impressed by it. And this is what she had done, and you narrate it to her. She may ask you to write it as a recommendation to be placed on file for Nurse Brown, because you would have witnessed, you know, the event and you were impressed by it because she operated within her scope and she was able to do this. Or, you know, you've seen her working with patients, how she had developed a therapeutic relationship with the clients and the family, and she had advocated, etc. And if part of the appraisal has to do, and part of your job description says you need to be an advocate for your patient, then that is something that you can use to score your employee in terms of advocacy, because their peers would have related to you and provided the evidence that advocacy was actually carried out. The concept of collegial evaluation or peer review of nursing practice is closely related to maintaining a professional standard, because like I said, who knows nurses better than nurses? Who know midwives better than midwives? And so our own peers, our own collegial evaluation of each other can help to strengthen the evaluation of our members. So maybe this is something that you want to think about, work on it, have a workshop that looks at the tool that you can use to do your peer review. What are the standards that we're going to use to operationalize this peer review tool? What are the objectives? Are we going to be looking at just strictly anecdotal records, or are we going to create a particular standard where we have to complete and sign off on, etc.? So that is something you want to think about. But I'm imploring us to give careful consideration about the peer review as part of it. It is said that staff are often poorly oriented to the peer review method, and many first level managers, especially our new managers that is, including our team leaders, may have little training in how to conduct the performance appraisal, and so they may shy away from the peer review because they may say that, oh, I don't know whether or not this is going to be meaningful, impactful, or it should be part of the performance appraisal. So we have to do some training as it relates to the peer review. It is viewed as a very threatening sort of tool when inadequate time is spent orientating the employees to the process and when the necessary support is not provided throughout the process. So it can't be something that you take on and it's ad hoc and you don't know how it is to be done and people do it. This is where you're inviting subjectivity into the process. Marlo says it's very important because some workers are eye servants. I like that, eye servants when the boss is around. It is true. It is so true. And every time I see this, and you term it eye servant, but I do know a number of our colleagues, nurses, or even in general work environment, they will pull up their socks when the quote unquote boss is around or the supervisor is around. And it reminds me so much of slavery. It's only when the masters are coming around or those who are, you know, handling the whip are coming around that the slaves are pulling up their socks and pretending to be working. We don't want that. You want to maintain your integrity as an employee, first of all, before I get to speak to us as managers, to ensure that you're doing what you ought to be doing, as if eyes were always on you. Whether or not you see the eyes on you, you should be performing at that particular level, because truth be told, sometimes eyes are watching us and we don't even see it. We write our own appraisals by our own actions. People see us and we think that they don't see us. We are being monitored. The patients themselves, or even the patient on the next bed, or the relatives of the patient on the next bed, they're observing us when we're in the clinical setting and we're practicing. And for me as an academic, my students are watching me. My students are observing exactly. Integrity is vital, because at the end of the day, that is all we have. Or integrity. We should always strive to maintain our integrity, because at the end of the day, that is all we have. And allow no one to cause you to lose it, or for anybody to question your integrity. My students are looking on. And when I go to my classes and I present information and I say, this is the source that I got it from, when I'm making my rubric, when I write my essay type question for final exams and I am rating them, I am using a criteria, the rubric that is specific to those questions. And when I say this is where the exam is going to be coming from, go read on this chapter, go do this, I'm not surprising them in the exam with something that they would not have been studying, because I pointed them to where, be true to your word, maintain your integrity. And this particular peer review will also help, because if we know that our colleagues who are very critical, and critical being used here in a very positive way, they'll critique you and critique you well, maybe, just maybe, some of us will be pulling up our socks and doing the right thing. Performance appraisal should not be seen as a negative thing. It is a positive event, because it helps us to identify where we need to be working our hardest on. So that was peer review. Now we're going to talk about self-appraisal. And I thank the Caribbean Regional Midwives Association. And when I got that invitation, it said that I need to speak on self-appraisal. And I had to honor that, because I do know that there's a place for the self-appraisal. We don't give credit to our staff members when they share with us what is it that they have been doing and their experience. And many times, and like I said, you are writing your own evaluation by what you are doing. So the employees are writing their own evaluation. And it says here, the self-appraisal is an appraisal of performance by the employee. They're appraising themselves. And this will allow them to be true to themselves. They're writing their own appraisal. It is an important part of reflective practice. And I don't know how many times I've used a reflection since I've been talking to you, but I do know that at the end of the day, I usually encourage my nurses, encourage my colleagues in academia, sit back and think about, what was I able to achieve today? What was I able to achieve this week? What were my objectives going into this week? At the end of Monday, I wanted to have achieved that. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Was I able to? What did not go so well? What could I have done differently? What it is that I needed to have done differently to ensure that I would have met the objectives? And so next week, I'm going to go at it again. So reflective practice is a process for the assessment of one's own practice to identify and to seek learning opportunities to promote continued competence. So if you're not able to do something at your best today, there's always the opportunity to come back tomorrow to do it better, but something has to happen between today and tomorrow. You can't go back tomorrow to try to do the same thing if you're not aware of what it is that you have done today that did not go so well. What is it that you did not do well? Is it something that someone else would have to help you with? Someone else will have to help you to identify the resources that you would need now to promote your own continued competence. And as a trained emergency room nurse, I always like to use, for example, CPR. If I find that my chest compressions are not deep enough, maybe I want to practice on a simulator, for example, that will tell me how deep my compressions are. If I'm not bagging the patient using the AmbiBag well, what is it I'm not doing? Is my technique that is wrong? Yes? And as midwives, I am not a midwife, but in terms of your delivery, what is it that you could have done differently? Could you have advocated a little bit more and a little bit more strident in your advocacy for the patient, and the patient may require a C-section, but the doctor didn't see it that way? Could I have approached it differently to have a chat with him to say, you know, but sometimes there's a way of approaching each other as team members and the way we say things. Bring evidence to show why you are saying what you are saying, and go back to the drawing board. Find some study that would have shown you that this is the evidence that says this is how it needs to be done or should be done or could be done. That is the part that says here, seek learning opportunities to promote continued competence. And I will implore you today as managers that if your junior staff members are not aware of how they can find these opportunities, that we help them to find the opportunity, and maybe, just maybe also to provide the opportunities for them. You may want to start a retraining workshop or a club in the organization that speaks to presentation every Thursday, every Friday, or whenever it is, to have your colleagues come and do their presentation, identify the areas that they would like to be presented, and you seek the experts in the area and you do the presentation, you do some practice with them, whatever it is. Allow them to come to you to say, this is what I have been doing. I've been reflecting on what has been happening. I find that I'm not competent. And we should embrace them coming to us. We don't want them to shy away and go underground and still continue to do the same thing, because it's going to lead to malpractice, it's going to lead to adverse events for the patients. Inherent in this process, though, of self-appraisal is the evaluation and the incorporation of this learning into one's practice. So after doing the evaluation of yourself, you need to say, what is it that I need to do differently? And when you have identified that and you would have addressed it, then you put it now into practice. And these are not my words. This is coming from the North Carolina Board of Nurses in 2016. Some employees will undervalue their own accomplishments. Yes, I don't want to seem as if I am bragging. If you have done well, you speak about it. Shout it from the mountaintops that this is what I have done, because trust me, nursing is hard. I'm sure midwifery is hard too. But a lot of times we undervalue the work and our own accomplishments, and we feel uncomfortable rating ourselves too much. We should encourage each other to speak about their accomplishments. I have been an appraiser before when I was in clinical practice, before I moved into academia. And I have done evaluation of junior staff members, and we said, tell me about how you think you performed for the past 2 years or for the past year working in the emergency room. What are some of the areas that you have done very well? Boy, sister, I don't think I work so well. I can't identify. This is how I think as nurses. I don't know if it's that I was saying to my head of school today. It's a hidden curriculum. It seems that if we are trained to undervalue our achievements and our accomplishments, we're not encouraged to celebrate them. We feel, and we take on when persons say, oh, you need to do better in this area, you could have done better. And, oh, yes, I think so. Yes, you think so. However, we need to start talking about our accomplishments. So we need to encourage our employees when you're praising them to think, come to the evaluation session thinking about the areas that they would have done well. Employees should never state a weakness or a problem without a solution. So don't come to the evaluation to say that I did not do the umbilical cord care well. So what do you think you should do? They should be coming to you to tell you, I didn't do it well, and here is what I'm going to do moving forward to help me to strengthen this area of weakness that I have, or this area that I need to strengthen. Yes, they should come to you also with the solution. What is your role as a manager in facilitating this self-appraisal? Complete the performance appraisal tool before reading the self-analysis, so you're not prejudiced about what they're going to be saying. You would have already completed that, but you're using this as an adjunct to the appraisal tool. Encourage the employees to never state a weakness or a problem without a solution. I said that. And pursue the reasons for any discrepancy. Why do you think this happened? Never leave it unsaid. Ask them to submit a portfolio. If they're shy about talking about it, let them bring a portfolio to you to say, these are the things that I've done, these are the areas I've been, here's my certificate, I've done this, etc. Let them come to you with that portfolio. And I have this reflection here, but for the purpose of time, we're not going to get into it, because I want you to put this when you would have had the opportunity to look back at the slides when I share them with Dr. Curtis. One. It could be a little notebook to just write.
Rodney.
Hello. Oh, I thought somebody was trying to comment. You write in your journal how comfortable you are with self-appraisal. Are your self-perceptions similar to those of the individual who's completing your review? Have you intentionally deflated your self-appraisal scores? Have you artificially inflated your scores in the hope to positively sway the appraiser? So reflect on that. All right, so I have a little quiz right here. I do hope I am able to put it in the chat. Oh no, I'm not able to. Oh my goodness. I wanted to.
That tells you your hand was up. Eldra, you had a question?
Yeah, I had a question, but I see she's moving on to another part, so I'll probably wait until the end.
So
You hear me?
ask your question.
I wanted to ask, the fact you said we should not raise for periods outside of the appraisal period. So I wanted to know if it would be inappropriate of me to refuse an appraisal even in 2022 that is supposed to be for the period of 2020 or 2021. Did I go off again?
Did we lose Miss Wade?
You lost me? Okay, I'll repeat.
Her bandwidth was breaking up.
Let me repeat.
No, she's there.
Okay, she said that we should not be appraised outside of the.
Did you hear the question?
Are you hearing me better? Oh, my speakers may be down. Let me see what is the problem.
We're not hearing you, Morvet.
Who is she speaking with?
James, I heard she said Morvet. We are not hearing you. So
Oh,
let them
but
know if you're speaking.
Okay, Ethel just speaking. My question is, if we are not to be appraised during outside of the appraisal period, I'm asking if it would be inappropriate of me to reject an appraisal given to me in 2022 for the time period 2020 or 2021.
That was what it meant.
I don't see Morvet. I think she might have dropped off, but Etheldra, based on what you're saying, it depends on that's institutional now. Maybe they didn't evaluate you in 2020 due to COVID, or there might have been a reason. Hi, Morvet, are you back?
Yes, I am back, and I do apologize for.
That's fine. Yeah, your bandwidth is dragging right now, but there was a question.
I do apologize. Like I said earlier.
There was a question. Etheldra asked if it is okay to refuse an evaluation if it's done outside of the period. Like for instance, if she's given an evaluation for 2020,
the internet
in
has been
2022.
Yes. Yes, if it's done outside the period.
Mm-hmm.
I would not say to refuse the evaluation, appraisee and meet and to determine if the appraising is on before the schedule to meet and to discuss any challenges. This is
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, I think we are having some internet challenges here.
In challenges, yes.
Yes, I'm having some, I don't know what is happening, but it's saying that I'm connected. All right, but did you hear the response that I was giving?
We heard part of it.
Right, I was saying that it is a great opportunity for the appraiser and the appraisee to meet and to determine why you are being requested in an appraisal outside of the appraisal time. It may be a challenge that is happening within the department. It may be an opportunity for promotion, because if it is that something happens and there is a vacancy that needs to be filled urgently, this may be an opportunity for promotion. So I would say meet with your appraiser and to determine what the challenges are. It could be something that's very positive too. It doesn't always have to be negative.
Right.
All right, thank you for the question. All right, I'm going to move on before the internet decides to.
Mm-hmm. You're no longer sharing, so.
Some further. Okay, one moment, please. Let me just share my screen. Share, continue from where I was, and share. Are you seeing it now?
Yes.
Yes, you are seeing it now.
Yes.
All right, good. So let me continue. But Houston is saying that there's a greater chance that the performance appraisal will have a positive outcome if certain conditions are present before, during, and after the interview. And we're going to talk quickly about those conditions that need to be in place as much as possible during these 3 critical times. And so before the interview, as the appraiser, make sure that you have the predetermined conditions, like we talked about earlier, that the standards have been shared with the employee, that they understand why so make sure that these are there. You don't want a time when you are going to be bombarded coming to see you. Can't be at the time when they are on the job. If it is that they are on the job, you want to ensure that they're using that latter half of the day or the first part of the day to do the appraisal. Try not to invite them to come in on their day off, because their day off is their day. Their time off is their time off. Give the come to work today and say to Nurse Brown, tomorrow is your appraisal. It creates anxiety in the employee. Give them adequate notice. As the manager, you also need to be mentally and emotionally prepared for this particular. It can be very difficult. Schedule uninterrupted time so that you don't have persons, wanting keys from you as a manager. They want to, your phone ringing, etc. Make sure that it is time that you will have to spend with the appraisee. Plan arrangement. Make crazy is at the other end of the desk, 9-10 feet away from you. That is just, you may want to set the environment where there's a table and you're sitting either across a very small table or next to each other. Very interesting. Okay, thank you. Be prepared, like I said, mentally. Set uninterrupted arrangement, way in a table and chair, and the appraiser, to ensure that there's no interruptions. Greet them warmly. Welcome to your interview. This is a formal process. However, please have a seat and be comfortable. Begin this session on a pleasant, informal note. How are you today? You look wonderful today. You're nicely attired. I like that. Did you change your hairstyle? Hair color, whatever it is, begin on a point for comments. You don't want to be, the only one speaking from them when they are speaking to you. Ask for comments. Surprises. You don't want to be springing, never discussed before. That too is a surprise. Use positive encouragement and affirmations to them as much as possible. Try to be encouraging. This is an opportunity to do some coaching within the and listen carefully, hearing what they're saying, but many times the body language. Hello. Okay, thank you for that, Patrice.
Hi, go ahead. Movet, can you hear us?
As we continue during the interview, ensure that your performance, avoid vague generality. Hearing me?
Yes, go ahead.
Right. I was saying, focus on the employee's performance. And you don't want to be speaking about things that happen to employees or you.
Okay, Movet, I think we lost you for a minute.
Yeah, we lost the presentation and it's there's a lot of lag in her speech.
Mm-hmm. Movet, are you still there?
She's on, but we're not hearing her.
Okay, I think we lost her totally now. What I will do is I will get the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation from her, and I will see how much she had left to present, and if we could possibly complete it in next week's presentation. Okay, so
I really
I will
lost her.
stop the recording here.